If y'all want to find out why the music industry is so quiet, if y'all want to find out why people are leaving their executive positions at these labels, if y'all want to find out why the Hollywood elites is so quiet, y'all might want to stick around for this video. I'm telling you, Damian Williams had a press conference. That's the state prosecutor that's bringing this case against Diddy. And it's a former prosecutor, federal prosecutor, that's going to break this thing down. That whole press conference and the messages that was in it that probably went over a lot of people's head. He going to break it down piece by piece and reveal how over 50 witnesses that include the Hollywood's rich and famous and how they could be in a lot of trouble. So I'm telling you, y'all better stick around for this video, man. Let's get into the content.
Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting.
There's always the possibility that Diddy is going to flip on others. You know, the question is, who could that be? It would really have to be someone very high up, Angela. I'm talking people in Washington, D.C., politicians. You know, there aren't a whole lot of people in the music business or in the movie business that are more famous and well-known than Diddy. But if he did identify many other people or all the other people who participated, that certainly would have some value. It's unlikely, but it's a possibility. Obviously, Diddy would have to turn in a very different direction. But even if he did, I can't imagine any scenario where Diddy gets off with little to no time because of the just egregious nature of these charges.
In March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs' residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs' electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims.
6 months from the time of the March raids to the time Diddy was arrested. And, you know, I asked myself, what's taking so long? Normally, an arrest happens within days, or certainly no more than weeks after a raid, because you don't want defendants to take off or to try to tamper with witnesses or evidence, which appears to have happened here. So waiting is usually not a good idea. There's also some potential statute of limitations issues because we're talking about some offenses that may have been older. Now, even though the statute is run, they might still be RICO predicate acts, but there's many, many reasons not to wait. And I thought maybe the reason that they were waiting is we're going to see a sweeping 100-page indictment involving lots of people and lots of crimes. And certainly I expected much more than one victim in the indictment. So the answer to that is yes. I don't know what's taking the investigation so long, because Cassie's allegations have been public since at least November. The feds have had plenty of time to talk to witnesses, victims, plaintiffs. I'm sure would want to cooperate. It could potentially help their civil claim. So I do take Damian Williams at his word, and there probably will be a superseding indictment at some point.
So if you're not familiar with what a superseding indictment is basically the original charge and document. It doesn't stay the same. As the case is ongoing, the charge and document, which is the indictment, can involve more witnesses, more victims, and can bring more charges to other people.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant.
There's no question that the video evidence of others participating in sex acts can be used for blackmail or extortion. And obviously, the commercial sex workers, they're victims, but the people that were participating in them, to the extent that they're caught on tape, Diddy would have something over them, something that could embarrass them personally, professionally, and may help further Diddy's career. The irony is all these videos are now going to be used as evidence against Diddy himself. So by trying to gain power in Hollywood and in the music business, he may have provided law enforcement and prosecutors the very evidence that's going to be used to take him down.
They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers. The indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance.
And, it seems so crazy to me that Sean Combs, if he is indeed found guilty, he provided much of the evidence to convict himself. I mean, I guess that's what happens in cases like this, but the videotapes won't lie.
No question. And that's why I love videotapes as a prosecutor. Like you said, Anjanette, people can lie, witnesses can lie, but videotape doesn't lie. And, I mentioned the Cassie video from 2016, why it was so powerful. Up until that moment, Diddy, through his lawyers, denied everything.
So this is when it really starts to get interesting, as this former federal prosecutor start to kind of get into the reason why you don't hear a whole lot from music celebrities or Hollywood celebrities on how they feel about this Diddy case one way or another. Because remember, a lot of these folks bragged and went to these parties for decades. So at this point, with them knowing about all of the photo imaging and all of the stuff that's on video, they don't really know where they stand as far as legal liability. They don't know if they might have been on something or been inebriated and did some things that they may not remember, or they don't know any of that right now. So that's why these folks ain't really coming out in masses kind of being against Diddy or kind of taking a side, because they went to these parties and now they know that these folks got all of these images and all of these videos, and they don't know what side of the fence they on. They can't really pick a side because they don't know what type of legal jeopardy they might be in. So this is when it really starts to get interesting as far as like these Hollywood people. And remember, it's 50 plus witnesses already that they mentioned, and that's not all of the evidence they got. That's just a little bit of the evidence. So let's get into the content.
And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs' crimes, he and others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced.
I do, and I'm here in Hollywood, and Diddy's parties were notorious and one of the worst kept secrets in Hollywood. If I were one of those rich and famous celebrities and I participated in these sex acts, I would be very concerned. I would be talking to a lawyer. At best, I'm a witness. At worst, I'm a co-defendant. And I thought that the feds were actually thinking about potentially charging others. And that's why it took 6 months to arrest and indict Diddy. But it turns out that wasn't the case. But if you believe U.S. Attorney Damian Williams, and I do, in the reports, there are at least 50 witnesses that the feds have spoken to. And I bet that some of those were participants in this. Obviously, very different case. But, one of the criticisms of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation is that the rich and famous people that participated in the sex acts were never brought to justice. And even Epstein himself got a sweetheart deal, probably because he was very rich and well connected. So, if there are other celebrities, they shouldn't get a free pass merely because of their wealth or their fame. And, I think that the U.S. Attorney's Office going after Diddy, obviously he's going to be their main target. But if there's other people, that were participants, they too should be prosecuted.
Now, I want to be clear about two things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4-HSI-TIP.
I think both. I think there are people who are cooperating, and people that aren't cooperating should cooperate. And he put up the hotline for the freak-offs for that reason. And this is why, I mean, under the law, anyone who participates in a conspiracy and commits overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy, they're criminally liable for all the crimes committed on furtherance of the conspiracy. So that's my lawyer way of saying, if someone helped set up the cameras and the lighting, or they bought the baby oil, or they administered the IVs, they're co-conspirators. So they're theoretically liable for sex trafficking, even though they didn't participate in the sex acts themselves. So they have a lot of exposure, and they absolutely should cooperate, because if they don't, there's always the possibility that they get charged. I think rich and famous people should be charged. It's tough to know what the feds are going to do. Now, some of them might not have a nexus to New York, so it might have to be a Los Angeles case or a Miami case. But really, if there are other participants, for them to get a pass just because they didn't actually contact the sex workers, set it up, threaten them, beat them, I think it's problematic and sends a message that, you know, only those who actually were at the top of the food chain should get prosecuted. And it really creates the perception, right or wrong, that people are getting a pass because of their wealth or their connections.
So really, it's that co-conspirator piece that's got Hollywood shook, that's got the music industry shook, because again, they don't know. They don't know what's on video. They don't know what kind of images the feds already got. So for me, it's that co-conspirator piece. It's that part that can link you to something criminal, whether you participated or you did something in furtherance of, you know, somebody getting violated. That's the piece that's got Hollywood and the music industry shook. Because when you get high, when you get drunk, and everybody wilding and everybody doing everything in that moment, shit, you don't think nothing wrong with what you're doing. Everybody doing it. You think it's all consensual. You dig what I'm saying? So, hey, man, we'll see where it go, man. Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.